What we'd like to do now, if we can, is just hear from the convergence leaders at each of the tables. And we could, as we discovered last time we did this in San Francisco in February, we could spend a few hours at these tables, and I know that. We could ask each of the convergence folks to just highlight a couple of the things you got out of this in terms of themes, ideas, takeaways that are important to you as you continue working in the area that you're overseeing here. Russell, how about we start with you on housing affordability? A couple of things that came out of this group?
We covered a lot of ground. I think a couple of highlights were really talking about this issue in context. So it touches so many other things. Housing is a determinant of health. It's has a lot to say about the type of opportunity that I have, the place that I live. Is it safe? And am I able to build wealth in the long term or just barely keep my head above water? So we talked about how there's a lot of interlocking pieces, access to childcare and transit. And so we'll have some hard that's helpful to a point, and then we'll have some hard decisions to make if and when we convene a table to decide like what's in and what's out of the discussion, I think is at play. We talked a little bit about places. Folks may know that should we pursue this project full bore, we likely would root it in a place because housing is really local, at least one, maybe a couple of communities if we could pull that off. So we talked a little bit about that. There was discussion of Baltimore, which I've been in conversation with Rita about since she has deep knowledge and ties there, a little bit about Chicago and the pros and cons of a variety of places and how we could learn a lot while still having something broadly applicable nationally to say about a solution set could be a good way to ground it. So there was a lot more. Appreciate all the discussion. Those were a couple of highlights.
Okay. Thank you. For those who don't know, Russell, maybe you can take a few seconds here. Housing affordability, we're looking at very seriously. You've put in a proposal to Wells Fargo for a pretty serious grant, and we're kind of waiting to hear now. Is that correct?
We are. We are waiting to hear. Yeah, I'm happy to share more offline with people.
Okay, that'll be over a drink.
It's been a complicated dance the last 6 months, but I've not been completely ghosted yet, so the flames are alive. We actually spoke earlier today, so we'll see. The good news is we'll see where they land. They're also interested in maybe helping pull other partners in, so I think that the conversation is very much alive. Nothing is for sure, so I like to not talk about money until there's a check in my hand, but if you know somebody who wants to support a housing project, Jeff made mention of a 6- and 7-figure check from a friend that he could have them write. So, bring it on. Certainly nothing is locked in yet.
Jeff, you're hereby on the board. Congratulations. Okay, let me hear from, thanks, Russell. Let me hear from the gun safety table, and I think that was Stephanie, but I have a feeling it's Morgan.
It is me now.
Okay.
Thanks very much. So, as it turns out, the gun issue in this country is complicated.
Okay, thanks, Morgan. That was,
yes.
The level, again, the level
right.
of insight was excellent. That was good.
Thank you. It's really well resourced. Okay, so we talked quite a bit about whether or not the goals of individuals who have been very activated on this issue are mutually exclusive, and we certainly hope that that's not the case. In which there are quite a few people who feel a sense of entitlement rooted in a right to gun ownership and the necessity of protection that's opposed with individuals who feel as if just the presence of guns is in and of itself a problem and a threat. So in trying to figure out the framing that we could use in a potential project, we talked about increasing safety, we talked about effectively using guns, responsibly using guns, and just trying to get to just the frame that we can use. And it is just quite complicated to get all of these groups in alignment. Something that engages potentially with not a regulation of the Second Amendment sounds strong, but in the way we think about other rights not necessarily being infringed, but regulated to promote maximum safety. We could think about that with the gun issue, but we continue to think. So if you have other thoughts, please reach out to us.
Well, one of the challenges, just expanding a little bit on what Morgan said, is obviously we've been looking at this issue for a while, is the tremendous challenge in how one might frame it. And that really is, a core concern here is there an issue that we can go forward with and reasonably expect to achieve outcomes which could then lead to results? So it's, so much of what we've learned is that a lot of it is in the framing and clearly continues to be a work in process. Thanks, Morgan. Let us go to the next table. I think is the DEI table. That would be Amanda and/or Sharona. Are you going to speak in alternate sentences, or are you going to just, Amanda, you'll do it?
I'm going to whisk the mic back and forth. No, we had a good conversation. We have a lot of new friends at our table, as well as some longstanding friends. So we asked for some observations about how convergence is perceived in the DEI space. And we heard that just for people that are new, and this is their experience today, that there is basically binary, sort of our race breakdown is mostly binary, mostly black and white, and much more white than black. We heard that conflict resolution organizations are often held to higher standards around diversity, equity, inclusion because of the nature of our work, and that we need to be representative of many communities in order to do that work effectively. We had a conversation about the progressive tone that is heard even in the way we frame diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as an organization that's wanting to remain neutral and be perceived as neutral, that's something to pay attention to. And we also heard that that can actually be addressed by doing, sort of depoliticizing DEI, because there are lots of studies that show that productivity goes up when you have a diverse workforce and leadership and so on. And so you can kind of take it out of the realm of the political by measuring your productivity before and after, let's say, a DEI intervention, and then you've made the business case for why it's important. I think that's pretty much as far as we got. Did I leave anything out? Sharona, that's okay.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, to move from that conversation to the pragmatic, any suggestions about how to create a more diverse presence at a meeting like this?
We actually had that on our list, and unfortunately, you cut us off before we got to the...
Oh, so it's it's not like I do this for money, guys. I mean, like, this is not something that is going to send my grandchildren to graduate school. Amanda, back off. No, actually, that would be interesting. Maybe over the reception, you guys can talk a little bit, because this is something we have grappled with. We continue to get better, but we're not necessarily where we wish to be. And I would also add another element to that binary and make it trinary, and add an element called age. Okay? So that's something that also we need to figure out how to do better. Okay, the last table, and I'm absolutely delighted, actually. Okay. No, Dennis, you can stay. It's okay. Just for today. Last table on basically visibility and support for our work. I'm actually thrilled to see such a large group resonating to that topic. Susan, please.
Yes, thank you. I think we spent more time on visibility than support, but Doozy is eager for all ideas on support, but I'll summarize what we did talk about. First, we posed a question to the group about our message and the times, and are we getting our message out? Is the message sharp enough for the times that we live in? And there was really a resounding call from the table that took us a little bit away from that and said, you just have to be better known. So figure out how you guys can get out there and be better known, because what you're doing is very important for the times right now. So, put your energy there and make sure that people know what you're doing. So it's an important call. And then we talked a lot about what our message should be, how to get out there better. And I wrote down a phrase that I thought was very good about how we should do our message, which someone described as solutions-oriented storytelling. I'll say that again, solutions-oriented storytelling. So use people as examples and really talk about your impact and the results that you've been able to achieve, but focus on the stories of people, because that's what really tugs at the heartstrings. So make sure you're talking about how people changed and the impact that it has on individuals, but focus on your results too. And then we just talked about being better about sharing materials, particularly with everybody in this room, video clips, etc., and just encouraging everybody here to use what we've got. So whether it's a newsletter or a short video or our social media posts, but that we're reminding you more frequently that they're there. And we're encouraging everybody in this room to use them in ways that you're comfortable using them, but to use our network better. And then the last piece of that also was just a reminder that we've got great people in this room and great people associated with Convergence, and it's a bit of a two-way street. So tell those stories too, as a way of telling our story and just sort of reinforce the network of people that are involved.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Doozy, so nothing on support?
You'll be hearing from me.
Okay, all right. Want to hear now from a couple more folks. You remember, again, throughout the day, we've asked a number of people just to talk about their experiences with and reflections on Convergence. And I think we have Lisa Davis making her way to the front, whether she knows it or not. Lisa's making her way. And then Akif has some concluding comments before we move towards wrapping up the day. Lisa? Stay where you are. Don't need to switch tables or anything.
Okay, so I know that I am, or rather Akif technically is, the very last thing between you guys and the bar and the reception at the end of the room. And it's been a really great day, but a really long day. So I want to be brief, but I also did want to jump at the chance to share a few of my reflections on why Convergence is so important to me. And I know you've heard a lot of themes throughout the day. I don't promise that mine will be new. I can promise you they won't be as good as Rita's, but here we go. So when Rob reached out to me in 2014, it was to talk about the Project on Nutrition and Wellness, and I was representing an association of food banks, and he wanted to tell me a little bit about what they were doing and get my thoughts. So I set up a 30-minute appointment with Rob and walked through the alley, and that 30 minutes ended up being, I think, closer to 2.5 hours. And I left that meeting feeling incredibly inspired, really intrigued by Convergence's many projects, and really impressed with the whole mission and the idea. So as often happens, I'm sure everyone in the room can identify with this. It went from that one meeting to coming to an LCE meeting here, having a few conversations with some other really interesting folks on different topics. And before I knew it, Convergence was a pretty significant part of my life. And over the last 5 years that I have been involved with Convergence, my ability for its team, the amazingly talented staff, the board, the leadership council, the project stakeholders, has only grown. I think that, and you've heard it all throughout today, when you look at the progress this small but mighty organization has been able to drive on so many really diverse but important, challenging, often intractable issues, it's really pretty incredible. And I constantly look back and think, wow, how big is the staff? What's the budget? And I know the budget well from being on the board. I'm like, and they're able to do all of this. And I think that's because there are 3 things that are really unique about Convergence. The first, and I mentioned this a little bit, is the people. From all facets of staff, leadership council, and board, I am always amazed by the passion, the smarts, the tenacity, and the hope and the belief that drives everyone that touches Convergence. It really is unique. In addition to all of the expertise and the counsel that people provide in this room, the thing that strikes me the most is how much heart there is, how much every single person here cares about our country, our system, these issues, and really making things better. I think the second thing that I think is really unique about Convergence is the results. You've heard about the results. But I think what's really remarkable and unique to Convergence is that while we're in Washington, D.C., and most people think of policy change as the way to get results and to drive systems change, and I've worked in that arena my whole career, and I can tell you I'm working now on some of the same issues I was working on when I just got out of law school in the early 90s, and there hasn't been a lot of progress in all of them. And so, ironically enough, sometimes I think policy change can be the least effective way to drive societal change, but it's an important lever. But with Convergence and all of its projects, people don't stop and think about, like, can we come up with a set of bipartisan policy recommendations to go and deliver? That may be part of the solution, but they also think really strategically. If we want to make a change, whether it's in creating a more nutritious consumer landscape and addressing diet-related disease, whether it's healthcare reform, helping people who have been incarcerated, reimagining education, they think about the other levers. You've heard about business change and corporate policies as a lever. And I think the fact that you have entities like Walmart that, employs more people than almost anyone but the federal government is changing the policies that they have for their employees. That's big. That's driving change. McDonald's. So that's a really important lever. When you look at marketing in the consumer landscape, I think what the Project on Nutrition and Wellness has done was just absolutely brilliant, taking social nudges and store design to set it up to make the healthy choice the easier choice, working with C-stores, which is where most Americans make multiple purchases a week across the country, to help increase the stocking there. That has a profound effect. And when I look at Education Reimagined, creating a grassroots movement of parents, of educators, of students, all focused on completely reshaping education and seeing that go from a tough conversation that I think people had doubts about to coming to recommendations to this amazing new organization with learner-centered communities across the country is really amazing. And then there are the less tangible results. The relationships that are formed, the individual projects, the way that organizational leaders change their thinking and their approach. Those are impossible to quantify besides anecdotes, but they're real. And I think all of us that have been involved with Convergence have a new connection, some new work that our organizations are doing and that we're doing personally, or a story to tell about how Convergence made a difference on that more micro level. And so finally, the third thing that I love about Convergence is that it gives me hope. In this environment that can be almost soul-destroying at times, looking at the hate and the division and the fighting and all of the issues, national and global, that we're confronted with every day, the knowledge that there's an entity like Convergence that brings together so many incredibly smart and talented and committed people to think through a different way and to make progress on these issues really gives me hope and belief that we actually can get our nation and our society and our Congress and our businesses and all of the little and large systems that make up our world to a better place and imagine a new and better future. So thank you all for all of the time and treasure you give Convergence. We're going to keep asking you for more. There's so much work to be done and so much opportunity. And I think even though the odds may be against us in a lot of ways, I know that together we actually can accomplish everything that we're all here today for. So with that, I think the bar is open. It's right behind you. And, oh, sorry, Akif, I forgot about you. See, I was trying to make them like me at the end, Rich.
I was fine with that, actually. Hi, everybody. Yeah, it's been a while, Rich. So I have my own Rob Sidewalk story. Somewhere between October 2000, holy cow, October 2008, right? And between October 2008 and April 1st, 2009, coming out of the Search for Common Ground office, I think either to lunch or coming back from lunch or to a meeting or coming back from a meeting, we were on DuPont Circle. It was a nice warm day, and I had just spent probably 4 or 5 months with Rob. Same thing, doing something else, had a lunch, got inspired, got pulled into a volunteer activity, was in a bunch of conference calls, then got work assigned to me, right?
And wrote the first check.
Right, wrote the first check. And we were walking, and he said, and there was no convergence. There was no word convergence. Actually, Tom Dunn facilitated the half-day retreat that created the word convergence as the name of that organization that didn't exist at that point. And Rob turned to me and he said, "Would you like to help me change the world?" He meant it. I'd not been asked that before. I said, sure, why not? So I'm back in the private sector now. When I left Convergence, and after a year of consulting, I met my business partner, now business partner. And when we started working together, he and I had some very frank conversations. In one of those conversations, he said to me, "Do you know what the likelihood of success is?" I was like, "No." He said, "Most business research will tell you 90% of startups fail the first year. Of those startups who get through year one, 90% of those fail. And of the ones who get through year two, on 80% of those fail. That's 0.64% left. And here we are at year 10. Right? When we started, I don't think year 10 was in the picture. I think 10 months was in question. And here we are at year 10. That's a pretty proud moment. And all the sacrifice along the way that we took on, that people who worked with us took on, our families took on, we're 10 years in to that sacrifice paying off, not just for us, but for our country, which is huge. I have a friend from business school. His enthusiasm and hope for the future of America since 2016 is as strong as mine was before 2016, right? So his view of what's going to make America great is so far different from where I thought we were in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. But his hope is strong as my disheartenment is strong. But we were in the reverse, right? But we talk a lot. Every election cycle, we pick up the phone, call each other, and talk it through. So we actually believe in a principle that's embodied in the vision of our organization. We haven't killed each other. That's good. We're working through a huge amount of fundamental differences in assumption, talking it through, and little by little, we do find some places where we agree. Eventually. So it takes time, but it works. At a micro level, as much as it works at the macro level that we operate in. I spend a lot of time in North Carolina now. I've actually taken the time to drive around the cities, I've driven the state, I've been in places that, really bad things are happening. And I've taken the time to get to know a lot of people who see me as a very different person than who they are. So I think it's easy to get disheartened. I think it's easy to feel like it's going in the wrong direction. But our country made it through the Revolution, the Civil War. We went from slavery to civil rights, went from no suffrage to mass participation in voting. We actually have made it through quite a bit, and at turning points, as I understand our history, dialogue was central to making those turning points occur. It's just not visible because there's no media attention on it. The result or the fight before are what get the media attention. And so in North Carolina, I live my nonprofit values daily. In my business, with my business partner, who we disagree every day, I live my nonprofit values daily. I apply the skills and techniques we've learned that you built, Rob, daily. And I don't think there's another moment in our history today where this value set isn't more important to promote. I think people want it. I think people are hungry for it. I think they believe in it deeply, but no one's put a name as a technique and as a tool to problem solve. But I think they believe in it. And so I do my best, having left Convergence, to promote what it is that we do, in what I practice, in what I preach, how I live, how I make money. And I think we can all do that in our own respective professional and personal commitments. So I actually am not disheartened. I think we're on the right path. I think Convergence has an enormous story to tell. I think we have a track record to be very proud of. It is extraordinary to come here today and listen to that about Congress, and listen to that about reentry readiness and where that's going, and Russell's project, and where the budget reform effort eventually went, where long-term care is coming back. It is so heartening to come back and see that. We weren't going to make 10 months. We couldn't pay the bills first year. And here we are. So congratulations, Rob, to all of us. Each of you had your sidewalk moment with Rob, too, that I did. That's why you're all here. And I think this is, although it's 10 years in, there was a world before Rich and a world after Rich. There's a world before Gene, there'll be a world after Gene. There wasn't a world without Stuart, and there won't be until, if Stuart ever leaves. And if Doozy wasn't there, there wouldn't be a leg to stand on. And if Rachel wasn't egging her dad on from behind the scenes, keeping it humorous, who knows where we might be, right? So it's a collective effort we should be proud of. I am of where this is. I think the next 10 years will be awesome because the country wants it. We just have to get out there and give it to them. So thank you.
Thanks, Akif. I want to be respectful of where we are on time, so Rob's going to just do a couple of few minutes of wrap-up comments. And Rachel, just want to know, is the ombudsman in her office during the reception? Especially during the reception, because each time I came by, she seemed to be eating or having lunch or something, and was not. Oh, okay. What did she say? I came by once. Go ahead.
Well, look, I know it's late. Thank you. First of all, Akif, thank you for your wonderful remarks. Lisa, I want to thank everybody who made such nice remarks today and to mark this day, and we will embellish this October 24th. Please mark your calendars. We're going to plan a special day of interactions. We're going to try to bring back a lot of our stakeholders, probably start at midday, and then we'll have an extended reception that night. Thanks to Aiken Gump, we're going to host us. John, thank you always for your hospitality and the graciousness, support. A new grant from the law firm, also an expanded grant from the law firm we really appreciate. Where's Rita? Oh, is Rita still? Yeah, yeah. So I'm a little confused. I've been called a mother before. Wasn't that kind of mother, but I'm proud to be your mother, anybody who speaks the way you do. So thank you for your beautiful comments as well. And yeah, sometimes you sit in this room, and I do get a lot of credit. Sometimes I pinch myself because to see if someone's actually saying it, but also see if I'm still alive. Maybe it's a eulogy. I couldn't tell. So, but thank you for all your kind comments. Let me say a few things that I absolutely want to say, and then we'll conclude. Let me also say I heard that some of you who are first-timers, we normally do go through our process in a more systematic way. Often our salons we do. If you still have questions about our process, let us know. Sharona can do this in her sleep. We have great materials. We're happy to walk you through it. You'll be amazed, actually, how simple the process really and logical it is. In fact, most people I say what I'm doing, I said, people will say, really? No one's ever done that before? And I say, no. It's really all I was capable of thinking of. So it's not that difficult, but we're happy to walk you through it. I want to thank Rich Korn, especially as always. Rich, where'd you go? Rich. I think you have a feel for not only his talent in front of the room, but look at his role in the BPWG. He's heading a task force for us. He stepped down as board chair, and we doubled his amount of hours that he does for us. Yeah. And I will say how excited we are to have Jean, who's really putting her shoulder to the wheel as a new board chair and bringing new talent and energy. And so we're blessed to have that kind of leadership. I want to say a special thank you. Just indulge me for a moment about this to the staff, to all the staff. There are people who make this meeting possible. Susan Jerison, Talyari, Lee and Doozy, Jag on our staff. And then where's Maria Elena? She somewhere, there she is, from Collaborative Communications. I don't know if Terry's still here. We have hired a firm. They're helping us not only with this event, but with the big celebration in October. I really appreciate your skilled help. But again, first thanks to all the staff, and of course all the other staff who prepare and made presentations and staff the tables and so on. I just want to say, and also, before I move to the project staff, we have a remarkable group, all stressed out, all doing the jobs of multiple people on fundraising, on HR, on admin, on communications. What Lisa said was right. It's an amazingly dedicated staff. It's a staff that, on the whole, gets along with each other really well, and we have some tense battles and arguments, we do, but that's part of our nature. But I just want to acknowledge everybody for all your hard work, and I want to especially acknowledge my day-to-day partner, Amanda Brown, who does so much work behind the scenes to make sure this organization stays together and frees me up to go out and meet people on sidewalks, which is apparently my highest skill set. So, but I want to say a word about our project staff, especially the project directors, but also those who work with them. Think about what they do. They take an enormously complicated subject matter, and they have to understand it. They have to become experts in process. They have to build relationships of trust with all their stakeholders. On top of that, we ask them to raise money. And they're holding all of this. They're holding like mini convergences unto themselves. And you know, there's one project director I know gets up like 5 in the morning every day so she can beat the traffic and is in and working hard. And other people work their own hours and their emails fly all the time. But imagine the sense of responsibility these people feel for trying to make a difference on these big issues. I know all of you work hard and do great work in your lives, and I know that's why you're here, and I'm so appreciative you give time to us, but I just want you to have a feel for what our people carry day to day on these issues, and it really gets to them. They feel responsible, and we ask them to do more than what they possibly should be able to do, and that's part of the reason why we want more resources. Imagine we try to take on one big issue at a time with basically 2 staff and then some support. So that's, I just want to acknowledge, and I hope you'll join me in acknowledging all the staff for their hard work. Okay. All right, so we've asked you to provide donors to us. We're going to ask people to fill out your evaluation forms for the day before or during the reception. We'd love to get them back. We don't get them back now. It's the only way we learn. I also wanted, out of that conversation, I simply want to say to you, we have great stories to tell. And to the extent any of you can help, I have reached a point where I feel like we're deserving of some kind of profile where everybody reads it and gets to know who we are and elevates us, and then we recirculate it. So I know Susan's looking for that help. I'm marketing all the time, but I think the track record after 10 years speaks for itself. So think about this. We really think it's about, on issue after issue, this methodology works. And I just want to emphasize, for me, it's a huge piece, the way I think about it, about how to get across the power of our work. We can't have, I meet a lot of people on sidewalks, but I can't meet all the people I need to. So if we get a high-profile piece on us, and if anybody has ideas about how to do that, I really want to encourage you to be in touch with Susan to make sure we make that go. Let me just say a final word and then on to drinks. We're thrilled to be working with all of you. We're thrilled that so many new people are coming. We love having the new interns get inspired by what we do. And you also heard a little bit of what a nonprofit goes through. And I've been running nonprofits, or major portions of nonprofits, for 33 years. And I also know there's nothing more that either falsely inflates or falsely deflates a nonprofit than exactly how they're doing on money. When money's coming in, you begin to think you're the cat's pajamas, and then when it's not coming in quite the way you want, it does deflate you a little bit and also makes you feel more pressure. So I'm pretty confident we're going to climb out of this with all your help. But I simply want to say that's a big deal for us, to get to the point where we can take risks, we feel confident, we can move forward, we don't have to worry about 6 months from now, we can take on projects that maybe there's no earmarked funding, we can play to our highest level. So that's why we've emphasized it to you. We hope we haven't overstated that to you, but we're just being realistic with you about that and appreciate your indulgence in listening to us about that. So other than that, fill out your forms. Thank you for being here. It's a delight to be with all of you. Get more involved if you're not involved yet. Stay involved if you've been involved. And thank you very much for giving us your time.